Caitlin, hit the music! Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's Geeks Who Like Sports Mashup! As always, I'm Ray Carcillo in beautiful Los Angeles, California, joined by my best friend in the entire world over in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lee Elias. Lee, what is today's mashup?
I'm excited about this one, Ray. Free agencies, really no matter what time of the year it is or what sport you're watching, it's always an interesting time that had stove. Yes. And I was thinking today, we have done in the past things like, if you could trade one Marvel hero to DC and vice versa, who would you trade? Yeah. Or who would work better? But today's a little bit of a different one. We're going to say what Marvel or DC hero or villain would opt in free agency to jump to the other universe. I have to say this too. I thought about Deadpool and should we disqualify him? And I have to disqualify him again. Yeah. Because he would screw everything up with this fourth wall break. Yes. There would be no end to the madness of that. So once again, Deadpool is disqualified. And I will say this too. I'm going to start with one. I'm just going to jump right in for a minute. You know, we always said the obvious person from DC to trade to Marvel for enjoyment, I guess, would be Batman as someone who's not a god and would kind of work in the Marvel universe, but he would never opt to leave DC.
No, he would never leave his universe. No.
And I knew you'd agree with me on that. I thought about he has that universe completely figured out. Yep. He is technically a god among humans in that universe. Yep. Marvel would almost be boring to him. And not to mention, he would just be kind of basic over there. Right?
Absolutely.
He's special in DC. So Batman would you know, again, I'm only using it as an example for the audience of like, no, that's not a good choice here of someone who would want to jump ship. He's very comfortable in the DCU. So, Ray, I'm going to start with you on this one. Yeah, you can pick a hero or a villain. You know, you get the villains, it can get kind of hard. But yeah,
sure. I think this was an interesting one because I think there'd be more villains who'd be wanting to leave than heroes. Sure. But I think
it would be funny if Thanos and Darkseid tried to switch. That it's the same guy.
It's basically one is basically
Infinity Stones. I tried it. Don't do that.
Anti-life equation. No, don't work.
We did that already.
Yeah. I honestly think Harley Quinn.
No, good one.
I think Harley, especially more modern Suicide Squad-ish Harley, would be willing to go over to Marvel, not only looking for a fresh start, but I think that the rules there would work more in her favor. There's not a ton of zany, again, aside from Deadpool, I don't think that there's as much zaniness over in Marvel.
There's a crossover that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you imagine? I mean, I think Harley and Deadpool working together would be a match made in
hell.
In hell. Yeah, it would be insane. It would drive Wolverine and Domino and a lot of the other characters that Deadpool usually frequently involved. It worked with Spider-Man. It would drive them insane, and that's what Harley would want. So I think Harley.
Yeah, you know, it's funny when you think about the Suicide Squad. Like King Shark would never like that's a real DCU type person, right? Like if you look at Marvel, look, there is some ridiculousness in Marvel. But not like DC. Well, again, the way I've always equated Marvel versus DC is Marvel are humans that want to be gods, and DC are gods that want to be human. That's always been the fun with the odd person here. So what about Thor? I'm like, Thor technically exists in both, right? Sure. So like the gods are in both. Like that's actually not
right. They're public domain.
Yeah, right. So it's like they are. So that's a good pick, Harley Quinn, Ray. I kind of like that one a lot. Mine, I've got a mainstream character here that I think would really enjoy the DCU. All right. We all know him, but I actually think Hulk would do great in DC. He is hated a lot in Marvel. He's given a bad rep in Marvel a lot. In the futures, he's always a really bad guy, bad guy. I think, the DCU could use him. I mean, and like when you think about the equivalent of Hulk in DC, I mean, I guess the Thing would be the closest equivalent.
Right.
And it's like not really. They're not comparable. I mean, at the end of the
Yeah, no,
day,
no. I
you
mean, the
know.
Thing on the Fantastic Four, obviously. Yeah, I mean, Thing and Hulk have fought a ton,
Yeah, and I mean,
and
there's.
Hulk
Sorry, I meant
always
to
wins.
say the same universe, but I'm saying like that's
Right.
always the
Yes. Yeah.
comparison. There's not even a compare. I apologize. There's not like a
Yes.
comparison in DCU. I'm well aware that Thing is in Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm saying like that's the only thing who anybody who's ever compared to him.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and look, Hulk has had great matchups with the Juggernaut in his own universe and other stuff. But like,
Yeah,
that's the thing is that like
there's a
it.
gap here, right? I'm not
Yeah.
crazy. There's like a gap for someone like the Hulk in the DCU.
Yeah. I think just that uncontrollable kind of Juggernaut. I think Hulk versus Superman
I was just thinking that would
would
be
be
amazing.
the matchup that everyone would want to see.
Yeah, and
Right.
someone
Like,
has actually made that like a fan made film of Hulk
yeah.
versus Superman. It's quite good.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because technically Superman's power doesn't have a limit, and neither does Hulk's.
Right,
Really,
right.
right? Like the only thing is that if somehow, if unless they somehow put Superman into a red sun room or whatever, like that would be the only way. Whereas Hulk would not have that, right? Like
Right.
Hulk's weakness is Banner, right? So
Right, right. And
you,
it's funny when you say it like that. Another Marvel character that I think in a heartbeat would sign in DCU is Howard the Duck.
well, yeah,
In a
yeah,
heartbeat. Just I'm going there.
yeah,
And
sure.
again, when I think about villains and stuff like that, I think there's a lot of DC villains that would love the MCU. Kind of
Yeah,
like you said.
I think of like the Assassins. I think of Deathstroke. I think of
Right.
Deadshot. I think of guys who
They're very
would
Marvel already in a lot of ways.
exactly right.
Right.
Like I could see those would be like Captain America villains, right? Those would
Right.
be like guys who are more gun based and whatnot. And like I think that they would easily go against like or Hawkeye, right? You're more street level. Daredevil would
Right.
fight these
Right.
guys a lot. Like so, I think definitely there's a lot of villains who would also go for the money. Like
Right.
Deathstroke, well, first off, Deathstroke, Deadpool is already a spoof of a spoof of Deathstroke. I think that those two would be competing for a lot of the same things, and might almost be like the Spider-Man meme because they would just look at each other like you're almost like me, and it's like, well, you're almost like me
You
too.
look just like me.
Yeah.
Here's one before we finish this out. Obviously Spider-Man always comes in my head whenever we're talking about these mashups.
Hmm.
And I have a hard time seeing Spider-Man in the DCU. Although I was very intrigued by the thought because he's insanely strong. Like again, that's one of those things that kind of goes under the radar how strong Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
He would be fine in the DCU, but I think Batman would just never let him in the Justice League.
No, but I think what would be great about Spider-Man in the DC is that he would have the mentors that he really hasn't had in
That's a great
Marvel.
point. That's a great point because he is a god. Yeah.
Superman would take him under his wing,
Right.
much like
Yeah.
he did like Captain Marvel. Like you could see that, like, and even Batman, like he did with Blue
Yeah.
Beetle. Like you would see, like Spider-Man wouldn't have to be. The thing about Spider-Man, great power and great responsibility, is that like, and Spider-Man has to rise the occasion, and he
Right.
often has to do it solo. In DC,
He
he
wouldn't be
wouldn't
alone.
have to rise to the occasion, maybe to his detriment in terms of his development, but he wouldn't have to rise to the occasion because he'd have Superman would help him.
Superman would
Right.
help him 100%.
Yeah.
Aside from having the same color scheme.
Yeah.
I think also though Martian Manhunter would take him under his wing. Wonder Woman would. I think you're right. I think he
Absolutely.
would thrive in the Justice. That's a great point, Ray.
Yeah.
Whereas again, Batman in the MCU would just take over everything.
Yes, he would.
You know.
Batman might almost be a bad guy in the end, or at least like even more of an anti-hero.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like of an equivalent, and it's tough in the MCU because like again, the Batman character on paper works,
Mhm.
but Bruce Wayne is not a good guy. I mean, he wouldn't be looked at as a good guy,
No,
right?
no, he
So,
would definitely be operating outside the boundaries of the law, and he would
President.
be close. He'd be closer to a Punisher than he would to like Captain
Yeah,
America.
that's a really good point. Yeah.
Right. Whereas, and producer Caitlin mentions that Robin and Spider-Man would be best friends. Dick Grayson, Robin, and Spider-Man, I think, would be best friends. I think. Yeah.
Very important to say that.
Yes, because not Jason Todd. Maybe Tim Drake, but not Jason Todd, and definitely not Damian.
Well, Tim Drake would be friends with Miles Morales. Like that's
a good call.
Yeah,
I think. I think
two
those.
Spider-Men,
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
call. I think Peter and Dick would be best
Yeah,
friends, and then
Yeah.
and then Miles and Tim would be
Yeah.
best friends. I think that's a
Yes.
good call.
and then that's it. No one's friends with the other one. So
no. Jason has no friends.
Jason's
and
very angry.
Damien's best friend is a cow.
Yeah.
So
Last one. I'd like to see Riddler in the MCU.
That's a curious one because again, I think he would be like he'd be like a Spider-Man villain, a Daredevil villain, maybe a low-level Fantastic Four villain.
Well, I like the idea of him being there because just the zaniness of it. But like, yeah, he'd be a little bit more of a fun character to see Spider-Man take on in the MCU, right? Like, or some of these other Avengers, right? Like I could see him messing with Tony Stark. Right. Yeah. I like he kind of does in the DCU. I mean, although the Batman was very much felt like a Marvel film anyway. So
they tried very hard.
I'm not using that Riddler, just so everybody knows.
Yeah. Producer Caitlin keeps asking who?
Well, the Owl's in another universe too. Actually, no, the Owl.
The
Owl's in what? That's DCU.
That's Owlman. That's That's planet. That's the crime planet. That's Earth 3. I think it's Earth 3.
Yeah. And what about the owl dude from the oh my goodness, I'm blanking out. The Watchmen. Ooh, that was close.
Oh yeah. Technically now they're part of mainline
DCU. Yeah, because they run out of ideas, and then Dr. Manhattan's a great way to restart everything. But Ray, we want to know what you think.
Yeah.
So comment below. Let us know what you think. This is a good one.
This was a good one.
Did we get it wrong?
Yeah. Let us know. Like, do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? Funny enough, really quickly, last week's mashup, somebody also mentioned John Elway for a possible 90s video game, or possibly Paul Correa for hockey.
Yeah, I worry that people don't remember who these people are. Like for me, it was like you have to be around in the 90s and you have to know these people today. But so I remember Paul Correa, and so do you. But if I wanted to a 15-year-old.
And the thing is, you wouldn't put Paul Correa ahead of Wayne Gretzky. So
never. No. Wayne Gretzky is the obvious answer from that era. There's a few others. I mean, you could maybe make an argument for like Keith Tkachuk because his two sons play now.
Yeah,
that's a previous matchup. These are getting traction, right? You got to comment and let us know wherever you are. YouTube,
want to shout out to Alex who mentioned on that. Again, John Elway was mine. I mentioned that one. He also mentioned maybe Troy Aikman or Steve Young.
Yeah,
for because that mid-90s NFL had a lot of guys. We mentioned Brett Favre last week. There were a lot of guys who could have done that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Shout out to the mailbag quickly here on the mashup. So mashup mailbag. But again, we want to know what you think. Again, appreciate everybody who watches and listens and tunes in. But until next week, for Lee, I'm Ray. Thank you all so much for watching, and this has been the Geeks Who Like Sports Mashup.